It's always fun on March 8th to open up your phone and go onto Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram and see people shouting out all the amazing women in their life. I really look forward to that and being inspired by others. And like you said, having the opportunity to shout out the women in my life who have inspired me.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Joanna Erisman.
And I'm Leah Alter.
And this is Women Share, a marketing guide for women in financial services.
We're super excited for today's episode as we are discussing International Women's Day coming up on March 8th and talking about what it means to us here on Women Share collectively and also individually.
As per our typical approach, we're also about making this real and practical. So rather than just talking about International Women's Day and what it means, we also want to share some resources and some things that we found valuable that we think our listeners in the financial services industry will find valuable as well. So with that, Leah, will you just do some table setting and tell us a little bit about what is International Women's Day, and then we can kind of progress from there.
Yeah. So International Women's Day is March 8th every year. And it's a global day of celebrating the social, economical, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating women's equality. International Women's Day has occurred for well over a century, which was news to me, with the first International Women's Day gathering happening in 1911, and it was supported by over 1 million people. Super cool. Today, International Women's Day belongs to all groups collectively everywhere. It's not a country, a group, or organization specific. But I'm curious, Joanna, what does International Women's Day mean to you?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned it's been around since 1911, because that too, I think I probably that was surprising to me. I became aware of International Women's Day, I feel like within the last 5 to 7 years. I remember specifically in my time on the corporate side, we would have content campaigns related to International Women's Day and actually all throughout the month of March. So I think that's really something interesting and potentially like applicable for our advisor firms that are listening, or financial advisors who have their own practices, right? It's like the month of March can be a great time to highlight not just women and the services you provide, but also the women leaders in your organization and what you're doing to really support the cause. More personally, though, what does International Women's Day mean to me? I think in more recent years, again, since it's been a handful of years that I've been really reflecting on this, I just take the time to reach out to, quite frankly, the admirable women in my life, of which there are many, to just thank them and, represent them. So that's what I just think it's a great day to pause and reflect and think of how far we've come. And yes, how far there still is to go on many fronts for women, but that's what it means to me. What about you?
Yeah, I think too, like social media has been a big part of International Women's Day being in the forefront. And it's always fun on March 8th to open up your phone and go onto Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram and see people shouting out all the amazing women in their life. I really look forward to that and being inspired by others. And like you said, having the opportunity to shout out the women in my life who have inspired me. And, social media gets a lot of flack, but I would say that this is one area where it's definitely been a positive, brought it to the forefront. But International Women's Day, to me, it's about the recognition of the contributions of women in both like the everyday, right? The people we interact with every day, and then also the extraordinary and the women who are having a global effect that are really helping the collective. And, when you look at that global impact, you see women like Ursula von der Leyen, the first woman that's been elected to the European Commission president, the Prime Minister of Italy, I'm going to mess up everyone's name, Giorgia Meloni, to, music phenoms like Taylor Swift and Beyonce, who are just dominating the music industry. And these have all just been historically male-dominated areas. And it's just really amazing to look at it on a global view and see the impact. And then like within our industry, right? So there are really a lot of women that are sitting in these influential seats, right? As CEOs and presidents at large financial institutions. Women like Abby Johnson at Fidelity, Mary Callahan Erdas at JP Morgan, the Sunda Brown Duckett over at TIAA, just to name a few. It's, you know, our advisors that we've had on the show, like there are a lot of women that are having an increased influence, right? So we learned in the Carson Group when we had them on to talk about the study that maybe we aren't seeing the numbers move drastically in terms of how many women are in our industry, but maybe the influence is growing, and that's something we can celebrate.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you say that with the influence. And I don't know if it's simply because we launched the podcast and, you know, it's something that's been a personal passion of mine, and I know yours as well. But I do feel like there's more momentum in industry. Like there's more events about this, which we'll get into a little bit later in the show. There's more conversations and just bringing this to the forefront. I think you've said this on a couple of recent episodes, like the way we make progress is bringing these issues to light. And so it is true. The influence, while the concrete numbers may not be where they are, we are seeing women in more influential roles, which is exciting. It will be great when we get to a day where, you know, you can't count the number of female CEOs on one or two hands, or people who have been moved into that role. One other comment, sorry, back to the just areas of progress, even outside of the financial services industry. The city of St. Paul, Minnesota, I don't know, this kind of blew up on social, I think it was in January. They have an all-female city council for the first time in their history.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's great. And it reflects, you know, even just like the ethnic diversity of the city of St. Paul. It's really powerful to see some of the videos related to that. So I would encourage anyone who's listening to go check that out as well. So every year on March 8th, International Women's Day has a theme. And this year in 2024, the theme is Inspire Inclusion, which, you know, the goal is this will help to catalyze people to act in big or small ways to be more inclusive. So tell me a little bit about, or what thoughts do you have, Leah, on like what inclusion and like what came to mind of ways you could be more inclusive, or you think of organizations. I'm not saying you're not inclusive. You, the general you. Could take action based on that theme.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to like poke around a little bit on the International Women's Day website. I highly recommend those of you who are interested in learning more and about this Inspire Inclusion theme to go check that out. A few things stuck out to me, particularly for our industry, from some of the ways that they had suggested on the website, which were forging women's economic empowerment. And we've heard that a ton on the show from our the women advisors who've been on the show who work with women clients, and that's a big theme for them, is empowering their clients with money and what that brings for them in their lives. Recruiting, retaining, and developing women talent. I think that is such a big area. Also something that we talked about with Julie when we had her on from Carson Group, about how important it is to develop talent and create opportunities for women that are already in your organization. Supporting women and girls into leadership, decision-making, business, and STEM. I love that. And then providing women and girls with access to quality education and training. So, you know, I mean, we've all heard the anecdotes about, you know, math and sciences and things like that. And just creating educational systems that give the same opportunities to everybody. So those were the ones that stuck out to me. I mean, there's just so much buzz right now in our industry about next gen, right? When it
Yes.
comes to advisors and this big problem of older advisors wanting to retire and get out of the business, but there's just not enough younger advisors to come in and take their place. And that conversation, I just think really has to include women.
Yeah.
And that is going to be a big shift, right? That we're talking about moving in this direction for women in our industry. We have a really cool future episode coming as we have a guest who is very passionate about this. And she has a really cool strategy about the next gen and how to inspire them to come to this industry with us.
Well, and even along those lines, what it's making me think of bringing together both inspiring women to join the industry and that pipeline concern for financial advisors of who's the next generation of advisors, and are we going to have enough of them, even though we are supplementing with technology, right? And the way an advisor works will be markedly more efficient moving forward. But it made me think of Lena Nebel of BFG Financial Advisors. She was our guest, I think, on episode 5, and her passion and kind of her not strategy. She's not being like strategic of this is exactly how I'm solving a business problem, but it just happens to align with this pipeline concern. Is she's actually taking her story and her education into local school classrooms, which I think is a double win, triple win for her, giving back and seeing that impact. But then also, as she's sharing, whether she's, giving a talk about her career or a financial planning topic in general, right, to help with financial literacy, she's inspiring so many students to think about financial services as a career, which, again, we've talked about several times. Like in the 90s, I was not thinking about financial services as my future. Yeah. But then also, as a woman going into the classrooms, that's naturally going to inspire younger girls, right, to think about, wow, that could be me, right? When you see someone who looks like you doing the thing, that's where it's inspiring. So, and I've actually, through my own personal volunteering, done something similar of going into classrooms and being a classroom speaker about financial literacy topics or career topics. And it's been just great to see kids make that connection. And yes, you can do this via Zoom and that sort of thing, but being in person and really that visible, experiential kind of volunteer opportunity is so gratifying, and it makes such a difference.
I love that you both do that. And, speaking of women who have moved into president roles, a big shout out to Lena for her recent promotion over at BFG. It's awesome and well-deserved. I'd love to see it. Yeah, so let's drill down a little further as we have gathered some specific ways that our listeners can inspire inclusion in 2024.
Well, I think one of the kind of simplest ways is, leading up to March 8th, International Women's Day. And on that day, go to the website, like Leah said, internationalwomensday.com, very intuitive web domain, right? And they have a ton of free content and resources. And you can actually, it's really cool how they have a very inclusive site because they allow people to share their resources that they've created, right? So it's kind of like crowdsourcing a lot of content, but
love that.
It's a great way that you can, find visual assets for social media. If you want to post some like quote cards, or they have these pledge cards. It's one that I found particularly interesting, where it's basically making a public commitment by posting like, I pledge to be more inclusive in XYZ way, that sort of thing. So, but additionally, say you're having meetings in March leading up to International Women's Day and you want to raise awareness, they've got virtual web backgrounds, they've got email signature banners. So just a ton of great resources. I would really encourage every listener to go check them out and think about what is right for you in kind of generating awareness for this cause.
Yeah. And if your organization isn't doing as much as you'd love them to do, rather than being upset about it or complaining about it, bring those resources to the appropriate person and take a leadership role. I think that will inspire those around you as well. And you're going to see a lot on our LinkedIn, the Women Share LinkedIn feed. We're going to try to share as much of these resources that we can. You'll see it in the show notes here, and there'll be links to everything that we share. And I would just recommend another action is to think about mentoring and what we've learned right now, the difference between mentoring and sponsoring. And if you have an opportunity to sponsor a woman in the industry, if there is a way to, if you've got an outstanding woman on your team or within your organization, think about taking them under your wing. Think about how you can help them achieve their goals. And if you're just starting out in your career, be proactive about going and trying to find a mentor and find a sponsor. Figure out what you need to do to get those people, in your sphere so that you can achieve your goals. It's definitely a two-way street. If you've not heard the episode with Julie Ragatz from Carson Group, go back and listen to that episode. There's a lot of really actionable steps, both as a mentor and a mentee.
And specific language of how to have those conversations, right? Where to talk about if you're approaching, say, a senior leader in your organization looking for that sponsorship, how to make it really easy for them to give you feedback about why it would work or would not work for them to sponsor you, right? And that feedback is a gift. So I think that's a really important one. And that obviously would extend beyond International Women's Day itself. It's not like that's just March 8th, but this could even be the springboard, right? Having these conversations about women and inclusion and that sort of thing is a great time to open up those conversations. Now, along the lines of the theme of, inspiring inclusion too, we've had a chance to reflect on our podcast from the get-go has always meant to be an inclusive space. I know those are values both you and I hold personally, right?
Absolutely.
And bring that to the show. So let's talk about, how do you think, how's Women Share doing in terms of inspiring inclusion, in your opinion, Leah?
It was funny when Joanna and I were prepping for the show. I said, I think I want to call us out a little bit, which is something that's part of this process, and we all need to do along the way. And when you look across our industry in financial services and you look at the women in our industry, they are majority dominated by white women, us both being white women as well. And even though we're a new show, so far, all of our guests have also been white women.
Predominantly, and yeah.
That is a way that we can inspire inclusion. And that is something that we are really focused on in 2024 and beyond. We want to get more guests on the show that have a broader perspective of women of color and backgrounds that have not been represented. So I think the show itself is based on us wanting to have these conversations, but we can do better and we should do better. And if you are a woman of color and you're listening to the show and you're in our industry, we'd love to have you on. And that, I think, is something we hope that you all hold us accountable for.
That's well said. And we've had the commitment to be vulnerable and share those sorts of, that like the good, the bad, the hard, throughout the show about our own consulting careers, being honest about where we're at. And I agree that is an area that I think we can make strides and really are committed to doing so without also, by the way, we're checking the box. Look at, it's because there's actual, there are perspectives that we are missing around some of the complexities of, the intersection of racial and gender diversity or whatever, ability, physical ability. There's a number of ways, obviously, that diversity can be represented. So I'm looking forward to bringing more of those stories to the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, Yeah, to your point, we are committed to the advancement of all women, and that really means all women.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to continue to work on that and not just talk about it, but walk the walk.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to both of us.
Mm-hmm. As we look at the industry in general, let's talk about some of the favorite resources, or specifically, I guess, in the wealth management space, the financial services space. What resources do we see? Like, what do you find the most interesting, or feel like, hey, let's bring awareness to these things for our listeners?
Yeah, well, it's been cool. Like, I think in the last few years, there's been a lot more focus on creating spaces and conferences and meetings and study groups and things like that for women in the industry, to create some of these spaces where you can speak a little more freely and have those kind of discussions and support each other. So I know FA, Financial Advisor, does a women's conference that's coming up this month, actually, or March 12th through the 14th. We heard all about Carson Group's Excel Represent Conference. I think those dates are still to be determined, but definitely check out Carson's website about that. Mm-hmm. We'll have more information coming on the podcast about that for sure. And then Forbes does a Shook Top Women Advisor Summit in May. That looks really interesting for a broad spectrum of women advisors to get together and share best practices, things like that. And then in my research, I came across a really cool conference series called the KAYO. I think I'm saying that right. It's KAYO conference series. Their website, kayoconferenceseries.com, it's just chock full of awesome information and a whole variety of different conferences that get pretty specific. So if you're in the M&A space, they have specific conferences and meetings around that, advisors, etc. So you can kind of like even hone in further more than like financial services and really connect with other women that are working in your space. And I thought that was really cool. What about you? What's some of your favorite resources?
Yeah, well, I think aside from, the organizations that are hosting those sorts of events, and there probably are events associated with a couple of other organizations, but I know
for sure.
the CFP board, really, this is like diversity is one of their primary initiatives. And so their content is just always really interesting. And again, they provide resources back to, attracting more, not youth into the industry, but making them aware of the industry, and specifically girls. They actually have some really great resources. Like if you are an advisor who says, okay, that's it, I want to go speak in classrooms, check out the CFP board's website under their diversity initiative. And they actually have outreach templates, how to talk to schools, what, articles that you could probably translate into presentations, that sort of thing. So just chock full of like real actionable resources you could use to help be part of this initiative. And then also the American College of Financial Services. I follow them on social and, get their newsletter and that sort of thing. It's a lot of just really interesting content led by interesting women too. They have a center for women in financial services. So it's another one to pay attention to, I think, because it's just, again, there's more people doing great work. And we are happy to have our little share in that here on Women Share. So,
absolutely.
And to bring awareness.
And if there's any organizations that you all as listeners are aware of that are doing some great things out there that you think we should know about and our audience and listeners should know about, please share those with us. Share them on social, contact us through the website. We are happy to pass those along, share them. We have an email newsletter that goes out every week. We can include them there. So don't be shy. If we didn't name something and something great's happening, share it with us. That's what we're all about. Women sharing.
Share it, woman.
Well, that's really our show for today. Happy International Women's Day to all of you and to you, Joanna. Thank you for showing up and being part of this community that we love so, so much. We appreciate you all. And if ours is a mission that you want to share in, join that email list right from the homepage of our website. With that, I'm Leah Alter.
And I'm Joanna Erisman. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Women Share.